Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
It was a quiet evening in Port Charles, the kind that carried an unsettling calm before a storm. The clouds hung low, casting gray shadows over the docks, and the faint sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Something terrible had happened, something that would shake the town to its core. A call had gone out to the PCPD. A body had been discovered near Pier 47, floating in the cold October water. The officers quickly sealed off the area, but word spread fast. Within an hour, half of Port Charles knew someone was dead. Detective Dante Falconeri arrived first, pulling his coat tighter as he walked toward the edge of the pier. "What do we have?" he asked the uniformed officer standing near the body bag that had just been pulled onto the dock. "Female, mid-30s, no ID," the officer said grimly. "We found her caught between two boats. Looks like she's been in the water less than a day." Dante crouched down, studying the scene carefully. He could see faint bruises on the woman's arms, a cut near her temple. This wasn't an accident. "Get forensics down here," he ordered. "And call the coroner. I want her identified as soon as possible." As the officers began working, Dante's mind raced. He'd been dealing with too many bodies lately, too many secrets buried beneath the surface of this town. But something about this one felt different. It felt personal. Word soon reached General Hospital, where Jason Morgan was quietly waiting outside a hospital room. Elizabeth Weber had been inside with Jake, checking on his stitches after a minor accident. Jason's phone buzzed, and he saw Dante's name flash across the screen. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "Falconeri," he said quietly. "Jason, I need you to come down to the docks," Dante said, his voice low, tense. "There's been a situation." Jason frowned. "What kind of situation?" Dante paused. "A body was found. I think you might want to be here." Jason's blood ran cold. "Who is it?" he asked, already standing up. "We're not sure yet," Dante replied. "But something tells me this is going to hit close to home." Within minutes, Jason was on his motorcycle, speeding through the streets of Port Charles, his heart pounding with dread. He'd seen too much death in his life, lost too many people he loved. But this call, it felt different. It felt like something was about to break inside him. When he arrived, the area was swarming with police and reporters trying to get a glimpse. Jason pushed through, ignoring the flashing cameras and murmurs. Dante met him near the yellow tape, his expression grim. "Jason," Dante said quietly, "I need you to prepare yourself." Jason's jaw tightened. "Who is it, Dante?" The detective looked toward the body bag lying near the dock. "We're not 100% sure yet," he said. "But we found something that belongs to you." Jason froze. "What are you talking about?" Dante held out a small object sealed in an evidence bag, a silver chain with a tiny pendant. Jason's breath caught. It was familiar. Too familiar. He'd seen that necklace before. "This was found around her neck," Dante said softly. Jason's throat tightened as he took a closer look. That's Sam's necklace," he whispered, his voice breaking. His hands began to shake. Dante swallowed hard. "We can't confirm until the coroner runs the prints," but he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Jason stumbled backward, his mind spinning. "No," he whispered. "No, it can't be. Sam's out of town. She called me yesterday." "Jason. She called me." Jason's voice rose with desperation. "She said she was fine." Dante looked down, his eyes filled with sympathy. "Sometimes people say they're fine when they're not," he murmured. Jason's knees felt weak. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, but his chest was tight, his vision blurring. "Open it," he whispered hoarsely. "Jason, maybe you shouldn't." "Open it." Dante nodded reluctantly and motioned to the coroner. The black body bag slowly unzipped, revealing the pale, lifeless face beneath. Jason's breath hitched, and the world seemed to stop. It was her. Sam McCall. Her dark hair clung to her face, her lips slightly parted as though she'd tried to call for help. Jason's eyes filled with tears, his hand covering his mouth as a strangled sob escaped. "Oh, God," he whispered, falling to his knees beside her. "Sam." Dante turned away, giving him a moment. The only sound was the soft lapping of water against the dock and Jason's quiet, broken sobs. He reached out with trembling hands, brushing a strand of wet hair from her forehead. "You promised me you'd be careful," he whispered. "You said you were coming home." The memories flooded his mind, her laugh, her touch, the way she looked at him with that spark in her eyes. It didn't make sense. She couldn't be gone. Not like this. Not after everything they'd survived. Elizabeth arrived moments later, having heard the news from the hospital. She froze when she saw Jason kneeling beside the body. "Oh my God," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "Is that?" Jason couldn't even look at her. He just nodded, his body shaking uncontrollably. "It's Sam," he managed to say. Elizabeth covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. She crouched beside him, her voice trembling. "Jason, I'm so sorry." He shook his head. "She was supposed to be safe. I told her to stay away from the docks. I told her." His voice broke again, and he buried his face in his hands. Dante stepped closer. "We're going to find out who did this," he said quietly. "I promise you that." Jason didn't answer. He couldn't. All he could see was Sam's face, still and lifeless, and the unbearable truth that she was gone. Later that night, Jason sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the necklace Dante had returned to him. The place felt hollow, every shadow reminding him of her laughter, her warmth. The silence was deafening. He replayed their last conversation in his mind. Sam had called from a burner phone, her voice rushed, nervous. "I'm following a lead," she had said. "Something about pikemen. I'll be back soon, I promise." He'd told her to be careful, to wait for him. But Sam had always been stubborn. She'd gone alone. And now she was gone forever. There was a knock at the door, but Jason didn't move. After a moment, Carly let herself in, her face pale. "I came as soon as I heard," she said softly. "Oh, Jason." He looked up, his eyes red and hollow. "She's gone, Carly. They took her from me." Carly's voice cracked. "I can't believe it. She was family." She crossed the room and knelt beside him. "We'll find out who did this. I promise." Jason shook his head slowly. "No, Carly. I will." She frowned. "Jason, you can't." "I will," he repeated, his tone low and dangerous. "Whoever did this, they're dead." Dante returned later that night with more details. "We ran the prints. It's official, it's Sam. The cause of death looks like blunt force trauma to the head. But there's something else. We found traces of chloroform." Jason looked up sharply. "So she was attacked?" "Yeah," Dante said. "She didn't drown. Someone made sure of that." Jason's expression hardened, grief giving way to fury. "Then I'm going to make sure they pay." Dante sighed. "I can't let you do that, man. You know I can't." Jason stood, his voice quiet but cold. "You can't stop me either." The next few days were a blur of grief and chaos. The news of Sam's death spread through Port Charles like wildfire. Alexis was inconsolable, Molly and Christina devastated. Danny refused to believe it. "Mom's coming back," he kept saying, his small voice trembling. Jason couldn't bear to face him. He couldn't face anyone. He spent hours at the morgue, just sitting beside her, whispering apologies he knew she'd never hear. When the autopsy report came in, Dante brought it to him personally. "You were right," he said quietly. "She was investigating something tied to pikemen. We found a flash drive in her jacket. Looks like she uncovered something big." Jason clenched his fists. "Then that's what got her killed." Elizabeth visited again, gently urging him to rest. "Jason, you can't do this to yourself," she said softly. "Sam wouldn't want you to." He looked at her, tears glistening in his eyes. "I don't know what she'd want anymore. I just know I can't let her death mean nothing." As the days passed, the grief in Jason's heart turned into something darker, determination. He visited Sunny late one night, laying the flash drive on the table. "Sam died for this," he said quietly. "And I'm going to find out why." Sunny looked at him, his eyes heavy with sorrow. "We'll get justice, Jason. But not like this. You're not thinking straight." Jason's voice was calm, too calm. "I've never thought clearer." The next morning, he went to the docks again, standing at the exact spot where she'd been found. The wind off the water was cold, cutting through his jacket. He closed his eyes, remembering her smile, her laugh, the way she used to say his name. He knelt down and touched the water's edge. "I'll find them, Sam," he whispered. "I swear to you. I'll find them, and they'll never hurt anyone again." And as the waves lapped gently against the pier, Jason Morgan, broken, grieving, and consumed by vengeance, made a silent vow. The man who'd lost everything would become unstoppable once more. But deep down, even as the fury burned, the grief never left him. Every night, he saw her face. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard her voice. And no matter how much revenge he sought, the truth haunted him: the woman he loved was gone forever, and he couldn't save her. At the morgue, Elizabeth stood quietly beside Sam's body, saying her own goodbye. "You were brave, Sam," she whispered. "You didn't deserve this." She looked up as Jason entered, his eyes red but steady. "It's time," he said softly. Elizabeth nodded, giving him space. Jason took Sam's hand one last time, his voice breaking. "I love you," he whispered. "I always will." As he turned to leave, the faint sound of the waves echoed through the cold, sterile room. And for a brief, fleeting moment, he thought he heard her voice, soft, distant, and full of love. "Goodbye, Jason." He closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face, knowing he'd carry that sound with him for the rest of his life. And outside, as the night deepened over Port Charles, the man once known as Stone Cold let the last of his tears fall, for the woman who had taught him how to feel, and for the love that would never die. 2 days after Sam's death, Port Charles was drowning in grief and confusion. The morning air felt heavy, and the whole town seemed muted, as if the loss had sucked the color out of everything. The police were still piecing together fragments of evidence, but for Jason, time had stopped the moment he saw her body. He hadn't slept. He barely ate. He moved through his penthouse like a ghost, haunted by echoes of her voice and flashes of their memories together. The knock on his door came just after sunrise. He didn't move at first, but it came again, firmer this time. "Jason, it's Dante," came the voice from the other side. Jason finally opened the door. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tight, but his voice was steady. "What did you find?" Dante stepped inside, holding a thin folder. "We got a hit on Sam's phone records," he said quietly. "Last call she made was to someone named M. Ross. We traced it to a burner registered under a fake name. But we think it's connected to pikemen." Jason's eyes darkened. So she was right. They were using Port Charles as a cover. "Looks that way," Dante said. "But Jason, there's something else, you need to see this." He opened the folder and slid a photo across the table. It showed a man on the security feed at Pier 47 the night Sam died. His face was partly obscured, but the build was unmistakable. Jason froze. "That's Brennan," he said, his voice a low growl. Dante nodded. "He's back." Jason's hands clenched into fists. Brennan, the same man who had escaped custody months earlier, tied to the Pikeman organization. The same man Sam had been trying to expose. She must have followed him, Jason said, his tone hollow. She probably found something he didn't want anyone to know. Dante looked at him carefully. If Brennan's involved, it's not just about Sam. This could blow up into something bigger. We're talking arms deals, money laundering, federal interest. I don't care about that, Jason cut in coldly. All I care about is Sam. Jason, listen to me, Dante said firmly. You go after him, you'll end up dead or in prison. Let me handle this. Jason's stare was ice. You won't get to him before I do. Dante sighed. You're not hearing me. You go rogue, and I'll have to come after you. Don't make me do that. Jason didn't answer. He just turned toward the window, watching the city wake up below. Dante knew that look, it meant Jason was already gone, already set on a path he wouldn't turn from. After Dante left, Jason pulled out the flash drive Sam had died for. He sat at his desk, plugging it into his laptop. Files filled the screen, financial transactions, coded communications, shipping manifests. It was all tied to Pikeman. But there was one file labeled Eagle's Nest. When he opened it, his breath caught. It was a list, names, dates, coordinates. Some he recognized immediately, high-ranking officials, foreign contractors. And at the bottom of the list, written in code but unmistakable once decoded, was one name, J. Morgan. Jason leaned back in disbelief. Sam had found something that linked him to Pikeman's operation. Someone inside was framing him. She must have gone to the docks that night to confront Brennan about it, and paid with her life. The realization cut through him like a blade. She died trying to protect him. That night, Jason went to the safe house Sonny used for meetings. Sonny was already there, sitting at the table, a half-empty glass of bourbon beside him. You shouldn't be here, Sonny said quietly. You need rest. Jason dropped the flash drive on the table. Sam died for this. She found out someone inside Pikeman was using my name. It's all in there. Sonny frowned, taking a slow breath. You're saying they set you up? Yes, Jason said. And Brennan's behind it. Sonny looked at him, his expression a mix of anger and sorrow. Jason, you can't go after Brennan alone. He's connected to people who don't play fair. Jason's voice was flat. Neither do I. Sonny sighed, rubbing his temples. You're walking a thin line, my friend. I know you're hurting. But you can't let revenge blind you. Jason's eyes flickered. This isn't about revenge. It's about justice. Justice? Sonny repeated softly. For Sam, or for yourself? Jason looked down, unable to answer. The silence between them spoke volumes. Meanwhile, at the police station, Dante and Anna were reviewing new footage. Look at this, Anna said, zooming in on a frame. Brennan wasn't alone. There was another figure behind him, shorter, wearing a dark hood. Dante frowned. Any idea who that is? Anna shook her head. Not yet. But I think whoever that is may have been the one who struck Sam. Brennan may not have done it himself. Dante leaned closer. So we're looking at two suspects. Possibly, Anna said. But if Jason gets to them first, we'll never get a confession. By the next evening, Jason was already on the move. Spinelli had tracked Brennan's phone signal to an abandoned warehouse outside Port Charles. Jason rode out there under the cover of night, his gun tucked inside his jacket, his heart pounding with fury and grief. When he entered the warehouse, the air smelled of oil and decay. He moved silently, every step echoing softly on the concrete. Then a voice came from the shadows. Jason Morgan, Brennan sneered, stepping into view. I was wondering how long it would take before you came. Jason's jaw tightened. You killed her. Brennan smirked. Sam McCall was a mistake. She got too close. Jason's gun was out in an instant, his hand steady. You're going to pay for what you did. Brennan raised an eyebrow. You think killing me will bring her back? You're smarter than that. Maybe not, Jason said coldly, but it'll stop you from hurting anyone else. Before either could move, a sound echoed from the far side of the warehouse, footsteps. Brennan's smirk deepened. You might want to look behind you. Jason turned sharply, but before he could react, a figure lunged from the shadows, striking him hard across the shoulder. The gun fell from his hand as he stumbled back. The figure stepped into the light, and Jason froze. Britt, he breathed. She stood there, trembling, her eyes red. Jason, you weren't supposed to be here. He stared at her in disbelief. You're alive? Britt nodded slowly. I had to disappear. Brennan made me. He said if I didn't help him, he'd kill you. Jason's voice hardened. And Sam? Britt's face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to happen. She came after me, thinking I was in trouble. She found us at the docks. Brennan panicked. I tried to stop him, Jason, I swear. Jason took a step toward her, his voice trembling. You let her die. Tears spilled down Britt's cheeks. I didn't mean to. I didn't want this. Brennan chuckled darkly from behind them. Touching, isn't it? The woman you mourned, the woman you loved, dead because of someone you once trusted. Jason's rage ignited. He spun around, charging Brennan, knocking him backward into a metal crate. The two struggled, fists flying, years of pain and vengeance exploding in every blow. Jason, stop! Britt screamed. If you kill him, you'll lose everything. But Jason couldn't stop. Not this time. Brennan had taken too much from him. Finally, Brennan managed to shove him back, pulling a gun from his jacket. You should have stayed out of this, he shouted. A gunshot echoed, but it wasn't Brennan who fired. He fell to the ground, clutching his chest, eyes wide in shock. Britt stood behind him, the smoking gun in her shaking hand. I told you, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. No more. Jason stared, breathing hard, then looked at Brennan's body, lifeless on the floor. It's over, he said quietly. But Britt shook her head. No, it's not. You have no idea what's coming. Before Jason could ask, sirens wailed in the distance. Dante's voice shouted from outside, PCPD. Drop your weapon. Jason turned to Britt, desperate. You have to come with me. She backed away slowly. I can't. They'll never believe me. Go, Jason. You have to live, for Sam. Before he could reach her, she was gone, slipping out through a side door into the darkness. Dante burst in moments later, gun raised. Jason, what the hell happened? Jason looked down at Brennan's body, then at Dante. It's done. Dante lowered his weapon, realizing what that meant. You know this isn't over, right? Jason's eyes were cold. It'll never be over. Back at the morgue that night, Jason sat beside Sam's memorial photo, holding her necklace. The weight of it felt unbearable. It's over, he whispered softly, though part of him knew it was a lie. Outside, rain began to fall over Port Charles, soft and steady, like the sky itself was mourning her. Jason stood there for a long time, letting it soak him, his tears blending with the rain. He closed his eyes, hearing her voice once more, faint but real, don't let this destroy you, Jason. But the truth was, it already had. And as lightning flashed over the city, Jason Morgan, broken, grieving, and forever changed, made a silent promise to the woman he loved, that her death would never be in vain, no matter what it cost him. The night had fallen over Port Charles like a thick, uneasy blanket. The wind whistled through the docks, carrying with it the chill of the October air and a sense of foreboding that couldn't be ignored. The flashing red and blue lights from the PCPD patrol cars cut through the darkness, reflecting off the rippling water. officers moved quietly, their voices low and grim as they cordoned off a section near Pier 52. Word had spread fast, a dead body had been found floating near the edge of the dock. But no one was prepared for what came next. Detective Dante Falconeri stood near the edge of the scene, his jaw tight, his expression unreadable. He'd seen plenty of death in his career, but something about this one felt heavier, colder. The call had come in less than an hour ago, and within minutes, he and Chase were on the scene. The forensics team was already working, pulling the body from the water, carefully laying it onto a stretcher covered with a black sheet. Dante exchanged a glance with Chase, who shook his head slightly. "No ID yet," Chase said quietly. "But the tattoo on the wrist, it looks familiar." Dante frowned, a small shiver running up his spine. "Yeah," he muttered. "Familiar's not always good." Across town, Jason Morgan sat at the bar inside Charlie's pub, his drink untouched. He had been restless all day, feeling that gnawing pull in his chest that something was wrong. He couldn't explain it, that intuition that always seemed to kick in before tragedy struck. Ever since he'd returned to Port Charles, life had been one storm after another. He'd been trying to rebuild, trying to make peace with the ghosts of the past, but tonight felt different. There was a silence in the air, an emptiness that made him uneasy. His phone buzzed on the counter, and when he glanced down, his stomach dropped. A text from Dante, "You need to come down to Pier 52. Now." Jason's hands tightened around the phone. The short message said everything, there was no hesitation in Dante's words, no explanation, just urgency. He didn't ask questions. He threw on his jacket, tossed a few bills onto the bar, and was gone before anyone could stop him. When Jason arrived at the docks, the air hit him like ice. He saw the yellow tape, the officers, and the somber faces that told him whatever had happened was bad. Dante turned as he approached, his expression heavy. "Jason," Dante said quietly. "You might want to brace yourself." Jason's eyes darted past him toward the covered stretcher. "Who is it?" he demanded, his voice rough, controlled but trembling beneath the surface. Dante hesitated for a beat too long, and Jason felt the blood drain from his face. "We're not sure yet," Dante said. "But there are signs. You should see for yourself." Jason moved forward slowly, his boots echoing against the dock. Every step felt heavier than the last, like walking through quicksand. The forensics officer lifted the sheet, and Jason's world came crashing down. The moment his eyes landed on the pale, lifeless face beneath the dim light, his heart stopped. His breath caught in his throat, and for a split second, he thought he was hallucinating. "No," Jason whispered, stepping closer, his voice breaking. No, this isn't." His knees nearly gave out as he stared down, unable to look away. It was someone he loved, someone who had meant everything to him once, someone he thought was safe. His entire body went numb. The edges of his vision blurred. He dropped to one knee, his hand trembling as he reached out, brushing damp hair from the lifeless face. The tears came before he could stop them, burning his eyes as his chest heaved with silent sobs. "Oh God," he choked out. "Why?" The officers nearby turned away respectfully, giving him a moment of privacy. Dante took a step back, lowering his head. He knew Jason didn't cry easily. But tonight, the sight of him, this man who had faced down death countless times, on his knees, broken, was almost too much to witness. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time didn't exist anymore for Jason. His mind reeled, memories flooding in like a movie playing in reverse, laughter, arguments, moments of love, regret, promises that would now never be kept. He couldn't stop seeing that face, couldn't accept that it was real. "She can't be gone," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Not like this." Dante crouched beside him, his tone soft but firm. "Jason, we'll find out what happened. I promise you. But right now, you need to let forensics do their job." Jason didn't respond at first. His hand lingered for a long moment before he finally stood, his jaw tight, eyes red and wet. He turned to Dante, his voice low, raw. "I want to know who did this," he said. "Every detail. Every name. I don't care how long it takes." Dante nodded. You'll have answers, he said. But don't do anything stupid. Jason didn't reply. His silence said everything. Vengeance was already burning behind those shattered eyes. Later that night, Jason sat alone at the penthouse, staring at the photograph on the table. The face smiling back at him was the same face now lifeless on the dock. The image tore at him, reopening old wounds he thought had healed. He felt the crushing weight of guilt pressing down on his chest. He should have protected her. He should have seen it coming. He replayed their last conversation over and over in his mind, the way she'd smiled, the way she'd told him to take care of himself, how she'd said they'd talk later. Now there would be no later. He pressed his hand against the photo, his fingers trembling. I'm sorry, he whispered, tears falling again. I should have been there. Carly showed up not long after. She didn't even knock, she just walked in, sensing something was wrong. Jason, she called softly. When she saw his face, pale and broken, she froze. Oh my God, she whispered. What happened? Jason didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, his voice hollow. They found her body, he said. Carly's eyes widened. Who? She asked, terrified of the answer. Jason swallowed hard, the words barely coming out. Elizabeth, he said quietly. The silence that followed was deafening. Carly's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling instantly. No, she said, shaking her head. No, Jason, that can't be true. Jason turned away, his shoulders shaking as he tried to steady himself. I saw her, he said. It was her. They pulled her from the water. She's gone. Carly crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. Jason didn't resist, he just stood there, the tears falling freely. For years, their lives had been intertwined, friendships, love stories, loss, and survival. But this hit different. This was personal. Carly held him tightly, whispering, We'll find out who did this. I swear to you, we will. Jason nodded, but his mind was already somewhere else, already planning, already burning with the need for justice. He couldn't think straight, couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Elizabeth's face, heard her laugh, remembered all the times he'd promised to keep her safe. He had failed, and that failure would haunt him forever. By the next morning, word had spread across Port Charles. The news had shaken the entire community. Hospital staff were in tears. Finn was devastated, unable to process the loss of someone he had loved deeply. Cameron, Elizabeth's son, was inconsolable. Laura tried to comfort him, but the boy's sobs broke her heart. She can't be gone, he cried. She just can't. Nicholas, standing nearby, clenched his fists, anger flashing through his grief. Whoever did this, he said through gritted teeth, is going to pay. Even Sonny Corinthos, hardened by decades of loss, looked stricken when he heard. He called Jason, his tone subdued. I heard what happened, Sonny said. I'm sorry, man. You don't deserve this. Jason didn't respond for a long time. Finally, he said quietly, I'm going to find out who took her from us. And when I do, they won't make it to trial. Sonny sighed. Be careful, he said. You've got too much to lose now. Jason hung up without another word. At the PCPD, Dante and Chase worked tirelessly, piecing together the puzzle. There were signs of a struggle on the dock, traces of blood, a broken bracelet that matched one Elizabeth had been known to wear. Forensics confirmed drowning, but there were bruises on her wrists, defensive marks. Dante frowned at the report. She fought back, he muttered. This wasn't an accident. Chase nodded grimly. No chance. Someone wanted her silenced. The list of suspects was growing. Someone had wanted Elizabeth gone, and the truth behind it was darker than anyone expected. Meanwhile, Jason returned to the pier that night, unable to stay away. The crime scene tape still fluttered in the cold wind, the spot where they'd found her body burned into his memory. He knelt down, his hand brushing the ground where she'd lain. I'll make them pay, he whispered. I swear on everything I have left. His voice cracked as he spoke, tears spilling freely once more. He wasn't the stone-cold enforcer tonight. He was a man shattered by grief, clinging to the one thing he had left, his promise. He stood there for a long time, staring out over the dark water, the city lights shimmering in the distance. Somewhere out there, the person responsible was still walking free. But not for long. Not if Jason Morgan had anything to say about it. Days passed, but the pain didn't ease. Elizabeth's funeral was small, intimate, filled with faces that reflected shock and sorrow. Cameron spoke, his voice trembling, telling stories of his mother's love and courage. Jason stood in the back, unable to bring himself to approach the casket. His eyes were red, his face drawn, but his presence said everything. Carly stood beside him, gripping his hand. When the service ended, Jason lingered long after everyone else had left. He approached the grave slowly, laying a single white rose on the fresh dirt.